Welcome back to Old School Sports and our OOTP 23 playthrough of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We are nearing opening day in this 2040 season. We've been general manager of the Pirates for 2 years now. Showed nice improvement in 2038 to 72 and 90. And then shockingly won the NL Central last year with a 94 and 68 record. I don't think this team is that good. We have very good pitching and defense, in my opinion. Our offense is still suspect. So I think we'll probably come back to the pack a little bit this season. But certainly making the playoffs is a goal of ours for this year. I want to be clear about that up front. We've been kind of cleaning up the major league and minor league rosters as we prepare for the start of the season. We've actually picked up a little money in some trades. We've traded away some lower level prospects that either didn't have great personalities or I just didn't think were ever going to develop, and kind of got back in institutional filler essentially for like the AA and AAA levels. So guys who are a little better right now, but don't really have any potential to be major leaguers. And we picked up a little cash with those trades also, so that's helpful. Thinking about the owner goals for this year, we're really going to need to reach the playoffs because we're probably going to fail in just about all of our other owner goals. And I know that me even talking about the owner goals upsets some of you. I don't like them. It's a love-hate relationship. I honestly hate them most of the time, but I do love that they kind of influence me to go off in different directions and do wacky things and maybe make suboptimal decisions. I don't like playing the game in a complete vacuum, and to me they add a little bit of color, even if it's stupid color sometimes. Such as extending Rodolfo Morales, who is looking for $18 million a year. We didn't upgrade third base. We're running it back with Jim Kager, so we won't make progress on that goal unless Kager all of a sudden becomes an all-star. And maybe we can improve our team on-base percentage. So potentially best case scenario is we achieve only 2 of the 4 goals that Mr. Nutting has for us this season. We're going to go with a 12-man pitching staff this year. We talked about it at the end of our last episode. Same 5 starters as a year ago, relatively young, relatively high quality. And given that everyone on our team has pretty good stamina, we are going to pare it back to 12 pitchers. Was a great suggestion from Matt Jones, and give us an extra bat coming off the bench, which maybe will help on the margins in improving our on-base percentage if manager Jan Vasquez uses the additional player judiciously. Looking at our lineups, we've still got 17 players on the roster who are everyday position players. So we've got to clear 3 more off. Big surprise is that our catcher is going to be Drew Romo. We picked him up as a minor league free agent heading into the beginning of spring training. He's wrecked physically, not much of a hitter at this point, but he still is excellent defensively, even better than our former starter Adam Fuchs is defensively. So that meant that we had to send Heel down to AAA, who we had just signed to a 4-year extension to be our backup catcher. I guess it was a 3-year extension to be our backup catcher, which is not optimal, but we'll still have his good defense around for next season. And if Romo breaks down in the early months of this year, we'll just go with Fuchs and Heel as we had expected. But until then, although I don't think catching is the cheat code, catcher ability is the cheat code in OOTP 23 that it has been in some prior versions, still having a 75 ability catcher should be a positive for our pitching staff as they try to repeat as the number 1 pitching staff in terms of runs allowed in the National League. Turning to the Pirates infield, we've got Danny Mendez, versatile player who's probably going to start for us at first base that we picked up in a trade. Hopefully we'll be in first place. Tony Cook back at second, Jim Kager back at third, Tony Fonseca back at short, Dave Urquiza back as a utility infielder for us, which leaves us with Luis Perez or Oscar Gomez as our sixth infielder. Both of them have very good fielding skills. Neither of them have very good hitting skills. You can see contact below average for both of them. Gomez has a little bit of gap power and a little bit of speed to make use of that power. A little better home run power for Perez, but not great. A little bit better eye for Gomez, but not great. And Perez definitely does excel at not striking out, but neither is all that exciting offensively. When you look at the ability to bunt and the speed that they have, certainly Gomez is superior on that front. And then we look at our defensive ratings, becomes pretty clear to me that Gomez is the guy to go with. Outstanding range, a gun for an arm, and pretty strong error and double play ratings. Perez is actually better at error and double play, but the range to me is a critical factor. You got to get to the ball to have a chance to make the play on it, and Gomez excels in that area. He's excellent at second, third, and short. So I think that as a utility infielder, Gomez makes sense to be the sixth infielder on our team. So we are going to send Perez back to Indy. And now we need to get rid of a couple of outfielders. We're going to be keeping Andres Mendez, the youngster who we're going to start at DH, at least against right-handed pitching. Good bat coming out of our minor league system potentially. He's not good defensively, but we've only got a few left-handed bats on this team, and we want him to be one of them this year. Obviously, Isaiah Hill, Rookie of the Year / MVP last season, is going to be back in right field. Ignacio Carbajal is going to be back in center field after we signed him to a one-year deal as a free agent, and then he subsequently signed a 3-year extension with a 4th-year team option with us. So he's with us for the long term. Chris Gomez, we're going to keep. You can see he's not in the starting lineup at any position right now, but he's a durable player, has some speed, good work ethic, and he's pretty versatile. He can play first, third, left, and right. He's been a starter for us the last 2 years that we've been GM of the team. So he's going to be back. So that gives us 4 players that we need to pick 2 of. Bobby Barrera is a Rule 5 draft pick. Not a great defensive player. Looks like he could profile as maybe a slightly above average offensive player if everything works out. Right-handed hitting left fielder. Chris Jackson is a guy we made a minor league free agent signing at the beginning of this month. Similar to Drew Romo in that he definitely has a chance to make this team. He's a little better defensively than Barrera, and he's also kind of a proven major league hitter. Didn't do much last year, hitting a $186 for the Twins in 205 for St. Louis, and he is almost 33 years old. But over the course of his career, he has absolutely been an above-average major league player and an above-average major league hitter. Our manager wants to use him in the starting lineup, so he's definitely in the mix. Jordan Owens, backup center fielder, really nice glove, not much of a bat. Hit just a $178 for us last year, but he's durable. The reason to keep him is the glove. And then last but not least is Tony Espinoza, another left-handed bat. We picked him up earlier this year in a trade with Texas where they retained his contract. He's better defensively than Barrera, although he's not as good defensively as Owens is. Looks like his bat is similar-ish to Barrera, and it's from the left side of the plate, which we could certainly use because right now shortstop Fonseca, center fielder Carbajal, and DH/pinch hitter rookie Andres Mendez are the only left-handed bats we have in this lineup. Drew Romo is a switch hitter, which helps a little bit, but at this point he's not much of an offensive player. And given that our center fielder Carbajal is durable and excellent defensively, and Jordan Owens still has one option year left, even though he's making close to $1.9 million. We really have him here just for his glove. So we're going to send Jordan Owens down to Indy. And then we've got one move left to make between Espinoza, Jackson, and Barrera. And although Barrera is in the starting lineup, at least according to what our manager wants to do, which we could change, as the DH against left-handed hitters, we've got a ton of right-handed bats on this team. And we've really tried to focus on improving the team defense. And other than Mendez, who's brutal defensively with that horrible range, you can see that Barrera is the only other guy on this team that sticks out as a average to below average defensive player. Obviously, very rough just with the one number defensive ratings, but Mendez is going to be on the team because he's a lefty bat. But we're going to return Barrera to Kansas City. Espinoza we keep over Barrera. He's a little better defensively, and it's really just the fact that he's a left-handed bat. And then Chris Jackson, I think, is a better hitter right now, and he's a little bit better defensively. Certainly not great defensively, but want to hopefully ensure that we are, particularly with Drew Romo behind the plate now, which could be an addition, keeping a real good defense when at all possible behind our pitching staff. Because as I talked about at the beginning of this episode, if we're gonna be successful again this year, it's gonna be through pitching and defense, and not because we batter people like we're the 1927 Yankees. Isaiah Hill is really the only big bat we have. So we are going to send Barrera, release him back to Kansas City, and that gives us our 26-man roster as we near the start of the season. And we've made it to opening day against the Reds. Top 100 list of prospects published. One Pirate, Angel Aguilar, who was the number one pick in 2037 before we took over the team. We're moving him up to A-ball this year, where he's going to be playing with both of the center fielders that we picked at the top of the draft in the last couple years. You can see, for those of you who want to second guess me, you may have some reason to. Ivan Hinojosa, who, when we had the number one pick in the draft 2 seasons ago, we went with the center fielder. He is listed as the number one prospect in baseball. Good defensive catcher, good personality, although a little bit greedy, and certainly looks like someone who can be a decent hitter. Did hit only .215 in high A-ball last year after hitting .279 in A-ball, but he is viewed as the number one prospect in the game. Just for context, take a look at our farm system. And the Pirates are viewed as second overall in terms of our farm system. And Henry Gonzalez, who's the player that we picked number one overall instead of Hinojosa, didn't do that great in rookie ball last year, hit .212. But given where his contact is, his eye, his avoid Ks, his gap power, he's really kind of developing nicely in everything except his home run power. We are moving him up to A-ball to start this season, and he's considered the number 21 prospect in baseball right now. And as the season gets underway, Mr. Nutting wants to remind us that we should make the playoffs. And the new Pittsburgh-based charity that we were talking about in our last episode with Edgar Flores is underway. The good news from creating that charity is that it gave a big bump to fan interest, the 10-point bump from 61 to 71. You can see fan loyalty is still pathetic. I think that might even be worse than whatever it was ranked before. I'll have to go back and look. I would think that that's probably better, but I can't remember how they termed it before. But definitely got the bump in fan interest. And if you were looking closely, you can see that's going to mean a lot more people in the seats, all else being equal. I think when the season started, or when this episode started just a few minutes ago, our revenue per game was only up low single digits in terms of percent from last year. And now with that bump in fan interest, we're all else being equal, and this number will obviously change as the season goes on and we're successful or unsuccessful on the field. But the revenue per game expected to be up over 20% compared to last year. And I think it also gave us a boost in season ticket sales right at the end from that bump in fan interest with the start of the charity. The accounting of it, we've talked about this in the past, but there's the minus 16 million for other miscellaneous expenses associated with that. But given the 10-point fan interest bump and given that it's meaning probably a good $75,000 a game in terms of additional revenue, it is an investment that will, hopefully pay for itself over a couple of years and into the future. So hopefully the additional fan interest will help us. Before we get underway, let's see what the experts think for the Pirates this year. You can see our old team, the Royals, still expected to remain on top in the American League Central. And they think that last year was a bit of a mirage for the Pirates, predicting us to be 86 and 76. Looks like if we have that 86 and 76 record, we would be the last of the wild card teams behind Washington and St. Louis, and we'd edge out the Dodgers by one game if that comes through. Not surprisingly that they view Isaiah Hill, last year's Rookie of the Year and MVP, as having another excellent season. And they think that if Tony Santana can stay healthy, he'll have a real nice season for us on the mound, which I would agree with. So now is our opportunity to go and find out the reality. As I said, 86 wins seems a little light to me. I'd like to be higher than that. But if we're in the playoffs, that's really what the goal is. If 86 wins gets us in as a wild card, we would sign up for that right now here on March 29th. And given the bump in fan interest that we just had, I'm sure some of you are screaming at me to raise the ticket prices right now. I actually only allow myself to raise them once a season. So I'm going to just wait and see how the first couple months of the season goes before potentially partaking in the one-time ticket price increase I allow myself. But certainly with the boost in fan interest, unless the team is a total mess on the field, I would think that probably will be raising ticket prices in a couple of months. And after getting off to really fast starts in the very short month of March in each of our first two seasons with the Pirates, 0-3 start for the Pirates, have been swept so far by Cincinnati. Fortunately, it's a 4-game series, so hopefully we'll get the win against them today and avoid a 4-game sweep, which would be a pretty brutal start to the season for our Pirates. Obviously early days one way or the other, and we did get swept. So an 0-4 start for Pittsburgh here in 2040. So between the 3-game sweep in the playoffs last year and losing the last game of the regular season last year, the Pirates are 0 for their last 8 at this point. Hopefully we can turn that around against Milwaukee and then the Dodgers going forward. And the draft pool has been revealed. Not going to spend as much time digging deep into it as we have in past episodes because the Pirates are going to be picking near the end this year after the real successful regular season last year. But with a 4-10 record here in the middle of April, certainly possible that we're going to be picking a lot earlier next season if we don't kind of turn things around. Obviously very early going, so the stats don't mean as much, but tied for 13th in runs scored, and the pitching staff is only 6th in runs allowed. Defense still really good. but very small sample size here, just 14 games into the season. Haven't even played 10% of the season so far, but we are 5.5 games out already. Let's see who's playing well in the division at this point. The Cubbies, who I think were in last place last year, off to a 9-4 start. So if I'm right about them being in last year, a total switch in the standings in the NL Central. But again, it's very early days. 6-11 here for the Pirates a couple days later. Drew Romo now banged up with strained rib cage muscle. He is hitting just a .05 for us. Obviously still a small sample size that he's 4 for 38 in, but given that he's not being that productive and he's banged up, we're going to place him on the IL for the time being, because we do, as we talked about, have a really good backup catcher with Ishmael Heel down in AAA in his final option year. So we're going to bring Heel back up to be our backup. That will allow Fuchs to become our everyday catcher once again. And we'll move Mario Ramos up to AAA since Heel is not there anymore. Hopefully we can do something to jumpstart this offense. I doubt that Fuchs being in the lineup every day is going to be the answer, but have not been impressed with Romo's bats thus far. And Romo's healthy once again. Pirates 8-17, so rough start. Heel hasn't had much action, only one at bat. So Fuchs being is he an Iron Man or is he durable? He's an Iron Man. He's been out there every day. Haven't been playing Heel, so we're gonna move Heel. Ooh, Heel's refusing to be demoted. He's giving us a decision at this point to make. Interesting. I don't want to make that decision right now, so I could put Romo on a rehab assignment. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to punt on it. I don't want to lose Heel because it's very conceivable that he's our starting catcher next year. Not much of a bat, but he does have that very solid defense, and we did sign him to that 3-year extension with a 4th-year team option during the offseason before Romo became available. Fuchs' arbitration number is expected to be close to $9 million next year, so it's going to be tough for us to bring him back. I don't want to just completely end the Drew Romo experience right now, so we're going to send him on a rehab assignment for the next couple of weeks and see what happens. I can't say I'm rooting for Fuchs or Heel to get injured, but maybe Heel will feel a little differently about going down to the minors in a couple of weeks. I doubt it, but we'll see. And we've made it to the start of May. Been awful on the field, 9-20, and you can see Ishmael Heel, one of the guys that we've been talking about, Tony Fonseca, center fielder Carbajal, right fielder, even the youngster Mendez. Not getting good news from our scouts on the direction of our players. Taking a look at the standings, we're already 10.5 games behind the Cubs. Is there any hope for us in the expanded standings? We're 2 games worse than anticipated at 9-20, so we shouldn't be in last place, but that run differential of -31, certainly not impressive. We're only 4-12 at home, and this shows the volatility of those estimates as far as revenue per game because of the team stinking. You can see attendance is sinking very quickly. We're now expected to generate significantly less revenue this season than we did last year. Obviously, the hope is that we can get things turned around on the field and give fans in Pittsburgh more of an incentive to come out to the the ballpark during the summer months. 14th in runs scored and 8th in runs allowed. So last year we were best in the league in pitching and we were middle of the pack in run scoring. Now we're middle of the pack in offense and about as bad as it gets in runs scored. And That's going to add up to a 9-20 record. I guess our winning percentage was slightly better in April than it was in March when we didn't win a single game. But May is going to be a critical month for us because if we fall out of things early, there are players that we're probably not going to keep next season that we're going to need to think about what we want to do with, where we could potentially get some value for them. Ernesto Moreno had been our closer for the past few years. He's been supplanted in that spot this season, so he's unhappy, but still looking at about a $9 million arbitration number, which is going to be a lot for a middle reliever, even a lot for a closer for the Pirates. And you can see our starting pitching, not nearly as strong this season as it was last year. It's still early days. Not going to panic yet, but certainly the trends are not excellent. Our new reliever, Charles Dace, put up a 3.27 ERA with 15 strikeouts in 11 innings, so he's doing decent for us out of the pen. And then Andy Ochoa, our new closer, only 3 saves because we're not winning too many games, but has not allowed an earned run over 9 2/3 innings, so he's been pretty effective taking over for Moreno in that spot. Looking at the offense, really not a lot of it. Isaiah Hill leading the team in WAR, but a .263 average, 6 homers, 17 runs batted in. Certainly not dominating offensively the way he did as a rookie. Andres Mendez has been pretty good as a rookie. You remember he's the left-hander that we have playing DH against right-handed pitching, hitting .298 with 9 doubles and 1 homer and 94 at-bats. So he's been an above-average offensive player for us. With that left-handed bat, gives us a little bit of a different dimension in the lineup. But there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's been a brutal start for Pittsburgh. Not going to change anything yet. Just going to hope that we get better results on the field over the month of May. And we've simmed ahead a couple more weeks to May 13th. You can see the Pirates playing a lot better, have the record up to 17-23, so have definitely started to hopefully turn things around. Only 5 games out. The Cubs are coming back to earth, and we are playing much better right now. Still 2 games below our Pythagorean expectations. Have gotten that run differential down to -12 on the year. 7-3 in our last 10, and you can see all the teams above us have been struggling recently. So hopefully that's a sign that this team isn't a total disaster. Still don't know exactly what we have. We've got a losing record in the middle of May, which isn't optimal, but certainly playing better than we have been. We are going to have a decision to make on Drew Romo coming up soon. Fuchs is obviously going to be our starter, hitting .261. Ishmael Heel only batting a .143. Taking a look at Romo down in Indianapolis. He's hitting .275 down there, so he's been better offensively there than he was at the major league level. Certainly would love to have that glove at the major league level, but the bat is just not good at this point. Not that Heel has a great bat either. I don't even know if it's better than Romo's, although he's certainly, last year hit .247 for us and 182 at-bats, which was much better than Romo hit last year. And he's solid defensively, but not as good as Romo. Just don't know if I just don't know what to do. We got another couple days before we've got to make a decision because there's 3 days left on Romo's rehab assignment. So we'll be crossing that bridge very shortly. And we're now at decision time with Romo here on May 15th. Hitting .255 in AAA. Fuchs is going to be around. Question is, what are we going to do with Ishmael Heel? We'll see if he'll let us send him down. I'm guessing he won't. Actually, he didn't refuse the assignment. I guess he wasn't getting a lot of play at the major league level, and he wasn't hitting all that well. So we didn't have to make the difficult decision. If we had to make the decision, and I know some of you will disagree with this, given Romo's excellent catcher ability, but I was going to let Romo go. Actually, I was going to see if we could get anything for Romo in a trade. I do think that Heel is going to be... He's the only catcher we have signed for next season out of these three. And realistically, with Fuchs still looking for close to $9 million, and Romo next year is going to be a wrecked 39-year-old that can't hit. I just didn't think that I could let go of the one catcher that we had signed for next year, who's a major league quality catcher, especially given that he's very good defensively. So fortunately, we didn't have to make that decision. Not sure exactly what the trade market would be for Romo right now, but we'll see whether or not Jan Vasquez wants to put him right back into the starting lineup. And he does. He still wants Romo to be the starter. We'll see how he does. As we've talked about, I do like that glove, but I don't like what we've seen of that bat so far in Pittsburgh. And we're actually going to overrule Vasquez a bit and put Fuchs into the starting lineup, at least against left-handers. Ensure he gets a few at-bats, and given that Romo is wrecked physically, maybe that helps us keep him a little bit healthier to hopefully benefit from that catching defense, and he's certainly not going to hit worse than he has for us already. And we've made it to June 1st, another month in the books for the Tigers. Not Tigers. I don't know where that came from. The Pirates. We're 26-31, 4.5 games back. So still not a great season, but we're up to second place in the NL Central, chasing just the Cubs at this point. Looks like the NL Central is a pretty mediocre division at this point. We are still 6 behind in the wild card and a lot of teams to jump over. So winning the NL Central again may be the most logical path to a potential playoff spot for this team. Looking at the team statistics, definitely got things moving in the right direction in May with a 17-11 record. Certainly if we can play at that level over the next couple of months, we'll be right back in the playoff race. Runs scored improved a little bit, up to 10th in the league, and importantly, runs allowed up to 2nd in the league in runs allowed. So our pitching staff starting to do better. Interestingly, it hasn't really been the starters this year. They're middling in terms of their ERA, but our bullpen has been excellent. Defensive efficiency and zone rating very good. Improving our on-base percentage was one of our goals. You can see we're only 13th, so ownership probably not going to be too pleased with us on that front. Yeah, they're upset with everything. Morales left the team. We're only one rank higher in on-base percentage. Still got Kager at third base, and we're not on pace to reach the playoffs. So it's been a challenging year for the Pirates so far, but we are playing better more recently. Checking on Romo, he's got the average up to $156, which means that he's been hitting close to 200 over the stint that he's come back on. So if Romo hits 200 with that defense, I think he can be a useful player. He's been a negative WAR player for us so far this year, and honestly has the worst WAR on the team, despite the fact that he was out for about a month with that injury and the rehab assignment. So his roster spot is definitely in jeopardy. But we'll see how he does over the coming weeks before we have to really start making some decisions about it. At some point, we can't keep falling behind, but we made progress in the month of May. If we keep making progress, closing the gap on the Cubs in the month of June, then we can kind of take our time before we figure out what we need to do with Romo. Have thought about bringing up Luis Molina. He was the pitching prospect who was really brilliant in AAA last year, 11-2 with a 191 ERA before he got hurt. The issue is that his potential doesn't look quite as exceptional coming back from that injury. He's still normal injury proneness. He's 2-4 with a 3.43 ERA. We will have him up in September at the latest, but he's still working on his stuff. He's still working on that knuckle curve, and I generally like our pitching staff. Certainly if we have an injury, I would think that Molina will get the first crack at coming up to the majors, but I'm not just going to dump somebody down to AAA or waive and DFA him to open up a spot for him yet. And not that it's going to potentially help with the decisions that we have to make, depending on how he plays, but Drew Romo has just told us that he's going to retire at the end of this season. Hitting $155 right now. Like the catcher ability. We'll see whether we can keep him on the roster the whole year. Still 4.5 back, 28-32 record. We're going to keep plugging along and see how the season goes. Kind of a rough week for the Pirates. 30-37 record now 7 games behind the Cubs. And we were talking about Luis Molina not long ago. Torn flexor tendon in his elbow, out for a year. Was 2-5 with a 3.82 ERA in AAA this year. Had big hopes for him. Obviously, he was a second-round pick of the Pirates before we took over the organization. But his future definitely in doubt coming back from that injury. Hopefully we'll see him next June or July in AAA, and maybe he'll be able to join the Major League roster at the end of next season if he looks similar in terms of his profile to the way he looks today after coming back from that torn flexor tendon. Still scuffling along here in the middle of June with a 32-42 record, and sadly you can see we've lost 8 of the 10 points we got in the fan interest bump from starting the charity because we've been so awful on the field. Attendance has picked up a little more when the team's been playing better throughout May and parts of June, but not playing as well right now, not generating as much revenue as we were in the past. We may have to drop those ticket prices a bit to get more people in the seats. But honestly, the easiest way to do that is going to be for this team to perform better on the field. Looking at the standings right now, we're back in last place, 7.5 out. We should be 3 games better than we are. Our run differential of -15 is not horrible. It makes me think we've just been a little unlucky so far, but at some point, particularly when we get into the month of July and approaching the trade deadline, we've been unlucky isn't going to pay the bills for this Pirates team. Another week in the book for the Pirates, another mediocre week. We're 37-45, 5.5 behind the Cubs. The only thing we got going for us is that our division is not very good at all. Got our mid-season review of goals from Bob Nutting. Not really pleased that we're not on pace for the playoffs. Not happy that we didn't upgrade at third base. Haven't really improved our on-base percentage. Not happy that we didn't sign Rodolfo Morales. He is happy that we signed Danny Mendez, the Gold Glove winner. Surprisingly, he's very happy with our progress, even though we're not really achieving any of the goals he set out for us this year. Hopefully the second half of the season will go more smoothly and more productively on the field than this first half has gone. And we've made it to July 1st, another month in the books. Let's take a look at exactly how that month went for our Pirates. Back below 500, 14-15. Fortunately, the division isn't that good, so we're still in contention, 5.5 back. 11th in the league in runs scored. Definitely got to do something to jumpstart the offense. Tied for 3rd in the NL in runs allowed. Starters ERA is still just not what it was a season ago for this team. You can see that Gotti and Santana at the front end of the rotation are kind of performing really well. but Gonzalez, Estrada, and Rosales are not as effective in the back end of the rotation. So that's definitely not optimal. Taking a look at the pitching stats in general, we'll just kind of sort by WAR. Omar Gaona, big disappointment. He's being used as a one batter lefty specialist. You can see his pitch just 7 1/3 innings, 7.36 ERA. So he has not been good at all. It's been pretty brutal, quite honestly. I mean, it's obviously a very small sample size. Charles Deas, the trade acquisition, not pitching as well lately with a 4.41 ERA. Gonzalez, in terms of his WAR, is not really even that far behind Santana and Gotti, and either is Estrada. Heriberto Rosales, our number 5 starter, definitely has been the weakest link, although he's 5-3, 5.17 ERA over 102 and 2/3 innings pitched, and a 84 ERA plus and a 4.89 FIP. Just hasn't been an incredibly effective pitcher for us this year. Taking a look at the batters, Isaiah Hill having a really nice sophomore season, 280 batting average, 17 homers, 56 runs driven in, 2.3 WAR, 10 stolen bases. Certainly not on pace for a season like last year when he led the National League in WAR and won a Silver Slugger, was named an All-Star, won Rookie of the Year and won MVP, but still a very solid contributor to our offense. Ignacio Carbajal, the center fielder, hitting 287. Tony Cook at second base, batting just 217, but still a positive WAR player for us. Andres Mendez, the left-handed hitting young DH, is hitting above average for us, 292 average. Not a ton of power with just 5 home runs, but he does have 20 doubles, so that extra base power has been somewhat useful. Kager at third base hitting just 246. Fonseca batting just 221. Probably his last year with us at shortstop. Looking at the guys who are really struggling for us. Romo, negative 0.4 WAR. So I guess he's been kind of a flat WAR player. He does have his batting average up to 200. Hopefully his defense is helping our pitching staff, although we're not seeing it on the field yet. Oscar Gomez has gotten a little more action than we would have expected. This is the great defensive backup infielder. He's hitting just 209, but honestly, if he's in a 6th infielder role for us and he hits 209 with that glove, I think I can live with it. I would certainly love his OPS plus to be higher than 36 and his WRC plus to be higher than 29. Just not hitting for much power at all with only 4 extra base hits and 115 at-bats. If you can hit 209 and just, use that gap power to hit a few doubles and triples, he could be a reasonable player for us, but obviously hasn't performed too well thus far. And the finances look like an absolute disaster right now. We've lost 9 of the 10-point bump in fan interest that we got at the start of this season for starting the charity because our play on the field has been so mediocre. We're set to make less revenue per game this year than we made last year, despite the big increase in ticket prices of 11.5%. Got to figure out what we want to do to try to juice that revenue number. Clearly starting to win and playing at a 600 winning percentage and battling for the NL Central over the rest of the season would put a lot of fans in the seats, but I don't know that we can magically make that happen. And because we did spend all the money on starting the charity, we don't have any money to bring on any free agents. So if we make any trades, it's going to have to be with somebody who we can get their team to retain all of their salary and just give them extra prospects in return to allow them to do that. So not a great situation for fixing the team this year. Take a look at the full standings and just kind of see where we are in terms of our Pythagorean differential, and that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of hope. We are, +5 on the year in our run differential. We actually should have a winning record, so we're 4 games behind where we should be. The bad news is that the Cubs are 6 games behind where they should be. They're actually having a much better season than their record would indicate also, so it may not be as easy to track them down as we would have hoped. And then looking at the wild card standings, we're 7 games behind in the wild card. So we're going to have a lot of work to do in this second half of the year. But before we move on to that second half of the year, we'll take a look at the international amateur free agents. Tommy Sandoval certainly looks like he might be a standout. Looks like an absolutely incredible bat, except for the fact that he's going to strike out a lot. He's got some speed. Pretty solid defensive outfielder, good work ethic. Not much of an infielder. He does have infield ratings at first and second base. At 6'1", you could play him at first. Wouldn't really feel good about playing him anywhere else. But that bat for a 16-year-old with that work ethic, that speed, and just that potential bat is very intriguing. Going to be hard, I think, to find someone more interesting than him. Johnny Diaz, third baseman, like the leadership, but just not in the same class as a bat, and he's also almost 18 years old. Center fielder Luis Rodriguez looks like he could have a decent bat, like the durability. Almost 17 years old, not as good defensively, not as good a personality as Sandoval. Catcher Willie Rodriguez, like the personality, bat is kind of mad, but he's a catcher. He's young. He's not even 16 years old yet. Don't love the defense, though. Taking a look at the pitchers who are available. Luis Flores, 17-year-old. Like the work ethic, although the rest of his personality is certainly suspect, but the work ethic suggests he'll at least be a player who could meet his potential. He's just not going to be a lot of fun to be around for anybody else. I do like the fact that there's potentially a 4-pitch arsenal if all of those pitches, including the changeup, develop. Could have plus stuff, plus movement, plus control. 17-year-old throwing in the low to mid-90s. Not a horrible prospect, and he could be a starter, but we've got to roll the dice on Tommy Sandoval. Another center fielder, I know, but he could certainly end up in left or right. But that bat, that speed, that work ethic, solid defense, only 16 years old. It's less than a coin flip that will end up getting him, because I'm sure there's a lot of other teams going after him, but we'll see what kind of feedback he gives us. He's interested. He's looking for the full $5 million. We'll meet his demand and submit the offer. We'll find out what happens, hopefully in the early days of July in our next episode. If we get him, great. If not, hopefully we can move on to somebody else. It's been an interesting year for the Pirates. You can see in terms of the winning percentage, we're only a little better than we were during our first season taking over the team. Finances, not as strong as we'd like them to be. And the play on the field, most importantly, not as strong as we'd like it to be. Third in the NL Central, 5.5 games behind the Cubs. So we've got a lot of work to do with this team in July. We've got to figure out whether we're going to be buyers or sellers. Given that we've got no money to bring on talent, we've got to figure out how, if we want to be buyers, we're going to do that. And we've also got to spend some time thinking about finances and figuring out how to hopefully generate some more revenue for this team. And as I said earlier, the easiest way is going to be by playing better on the field. But I don't know that we're going to be magically able to flip that switch. So interesting challenge this year with the Pirates, and we'll focus on trying to solve that challenge in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.